Reverend Fathers, Mr. President of the Blackrock Union, principal, teachers, parents, friends. Before I start, I'd like to thank everyone associated with Blackrock for arranging this day for us. Mr. Ryan and his colleagues for the work on the Mass this morning, and indeed their support throughout the entire year, keeping us on the straight and narrow and keeping check-in open until 9:30. The Blackrock Parents Association for organising this event, and the staff here in Leopardstown for such a great meal. Left to our own devices, a chicken fillet roll might have been all that marked this occasion, so this was much more appreciated. We're looking forward to a return here for the Debs in September, which gives myself and the rest of the senior debating team 4 months to figure out how to talk to girls. I can confirm that I'm giving this speech on a 5-second delay and that Mr. Hurley is ready with a button to bleep me if I say anything bleeping inappropriate. Though that button may take the form of the SCT front row being told I've got friends in Gonzaga. So I'm hoping there's nothing too off-colour in these remarks. Over the last few years, I've had the privilege of debating for the school, but I find myself today in the slightly uncomfortable position of not having anyone to argue with, no opposition to oppose. Instead of a debate, I have the task of bidding farewell to Blackrock College on behalf of the class of 2023. As is tradition, I'll attempt to summarise our 6 years together, to put our collective experience in some context as we look forward to the future. But this is no easy task. There's been incredible highs, like the Odeon, and crushing lows, like getting kicked out of the Odeon. But I'll do my best to do our time here justice. Where then to start but the beginning? Heading into first year, I'd come from a local national school, so like half the class, I didn't really know what to expect from Willow Park. I'd heard tales of a religious devotion to rugby, so I figured I'd have to give it a go. But after Mr. Rogan realised my immense physique was intimidating Tom Brigg, I was asked to hang up my jersey in the interests of health and safety. Who knows what Leinster's fate might have been yesterday if I had the career I was promised. In January, we got our first taste of the cup season propaganda machine as a dozen 60ers in blue jumpsuits marshalled us into the cafeteria while chanting 69 over a megaphone. It took me a while to figure out they were just referring to the number of trophies we'd won. But after a few rounds of Blackrock Superior, I was ready to bleed blue and white, even if Koh Samui was a long way away. There was so much more to Willow Park than just rugby, though. Our visit to the zoo taught us that the North Side actually existed. Rigorous scientific experimentation proved that it was, in fact, possible to fit a 13-year-old into a locker. Tales of the Latin trip to Rome would give Mr. Hurley's bleep finger repetitive strain injury, but they still inspire holiday planning for those looking forward to the cultural and architectural treasures of the Mediterranean after the Leaving Cert. In his rousing speeches, Mr. McGinty often reminds us to be grateful. And looking back on it, I don't think we really appreciated how good we had it in first year. Well-being class was an examinable subject. We'd never heard of the SEC, and the legend Henry IGB was still among us. Spooked by Miss Phelan's warnings that we'd be eaten alive in the college, though, this carefree ignorance was to change as we headed across the pitches to second year. We were in a new world, a world of application cards, detentions, and third years barging past us on the corridor. We had to discover the ways and traditions of the college, realize that we were no longer top of the food chain, and learn that showing up to check-in with a puffer jacket was worse than a Michaels jersey. In short, we had to learn to be respectful. It was a humbling experience. After a few weeks of turning up to the canteen late and getting turned away, we now know how Enoch Burke feels outside Wilson's Hospital. We also learnt that the terror of a DX is the only thing more terrifying than seeing Enoch Burke show up outside your school. I'm convinced that the stress of this transition is at least partly responsible for my hairline resembling that of Mr. Ryan's. But under the guidance of Miss Harlow, we found our feet and made our way in the college. Before we knew it, however, it was time to move across the hall to third year. No longer at the very bottom of the pecking order, it can be easy to throw your weight around in third year. Mr. Brennan's leadership, though, reminded us to be caring. After all, we once were the second years tipping over under the weight of our new school bags. While we certainly had lots to be caring about, the one thing that stood out above all others was our junior cert. None of us had ever sat an exam where you couldn't just ask the teacher for the answer, so needless to say, this wasn't something we were looking forward to. On the plus side, though, there was the new junior cycle. It seemed like we could get away with doing PowerPoint presentations instead of exams, and of course nobody failed because that might hurt our well-being. We perfected the art of getting teachers to complain about these new changes long enough to forget we had homework to hand up, and even by the mocks, I don't think we really understood we had state exams in June. As our mocks drew near, though, tales began to circulate of a new virus, and unfortunately this time it wasn't just cup fever. On the morning of our English exam, it was announced we'd have 2 weeks off school. Never one to let something as trivial as a global pandemic get in the way of a Blackrock education, though, Mr. Brennan sent us our exams to complete at home. But after Jamie Ahern's record-breaking 105% in his maths mock, teachers gave up trying to keep us in exam mode. Online classes became the norm as we adapted to this strange new situation, and as 2 weeks turned to 3 months. The Blade 3 haircut rule went out the window, and the dressing gown became the school uniform of choice. Oscar Wilde once said you could never be overdressed or overeducated. There was no fear of either by the end of third year. So after our 3-month holiday in lockdown, it was time to begin the 9-month holiday, known as transition year. Woody Allen once said that 80% of success is showing up. He clearly never considered transition year, where showing up for more than 20% of your classes is a resounding failure. Ironically, though, if there's one phrase that could describe our time in TY, it's be there. The year taught us that being there is about much more than just turning up to class, because although we did very little of that, we nonetheless put heart and soul into bouncing back from COVID with an eventful year. BCR dominated the first term as we tested the boundaries of just how many classes one needed to miss to edit a 15-second ad for Straineys into a 12-second ad for Straineys. Mr. O'Neill made a huge effort to ensure we had every opportunity despite the circumstances. Bubble football replaced the soccer marathon, and Christmas tree sales continued behind masks, though we never did quite master taking tips by Revolut. If BCR dominated the first term, the return of COVID unfortunately dominated the second. Fortnite tournaments, house chess matches, and cooking modules from home helped relieve some of the tedium, although the proposal for make-your-own cocktail kits never did quite make it past Mr. O'Neill. But as a group, we didn't let adversity get the better of us. Not only did we do our best to continue TY, we even started a podcast, an addition to the TY program that will remain part of our class's legacy, even if we did have to censor some of the more heated arguments in the debate over Boojum v. Tekka. Einstein once said that education is what remains after you've forgotten what you learned in school, so we must have been really well educated by the end of transition year. Our days of bubble football tournaments and BCR shows were to come crashing down, though, as we headed through St. Patrick's Corridor to fifth year. Mark Twain advised that if you tell the truth, you don't have to bother remembering anything. Fifth year, though, was about remembering the truth and accepting it. The truth that our days of lounging in the BCR room and taking classes for bed were finally over, and that we could no longer mute our teachers when they had the audacity to expect us to hand up homework. Being truthful is often hardest when it's to yourself, and Miss Dobbins' task was leading us back to the cold reality of tests, night study, and responsibility. That's not to say it was all work and no play, though, as we had plenty of events to lighten the mood. Adopting Seymour the orangutan, the cyclothon, and of course the senior musical, unofficially known as the Joseph Gibney Experience. I think Joseph is the only man in our year that could get away with putting a photo of himself as Jesus Christ into our graduating yearbook. Fifth year also saw the college modernize with the addition of the Surface Go tablets. However, it didn't take us long to find our way around the parental controls, and we'd often get caught watching some really hardcore videos of last night's Champions League. Speaking of sport, the college took home our 70th SCT that year, which did something to ward off the sense of impending doom as we plodded up the stairs to sixth year. I don't have another be caring phrase to describe sixth year because it's such a difficult year to condense into a single idea. We went into the year a man down due to serious illness, and our thoughts are with Andrew Welch. It was great to see him today, and we wish him well. His kindness and positivity have been missed around the corridors. This was also to be the last year of teaching for the Blackrock legend that is Mr. Shiel. Throughout his time in the college, he's inspired hundreds of young men. I'd like to thank him personally for his immense dedication to debating. And so, after our retreats in September and some more spiritual recovery in Eden Derry, we took off on the home stretch, running on a diet of sausage rolls, coffee, and not a single elf bar between us. This year has honestly been a blur of study hall, study cliques, and study breaks playing pool, all with Mr. Ryan's experienced hand guiding and supporting us. This routine was punctuated only by the daily death match for a seat at the top floor of Dunleary Library. I never knew the lads of 6-8 maths had such a vicious edge, and I've learnt the hard way to never get between John Glynn and his study of applied maths. The SCT did us proud again. In the words of the great Vince Lombardi, we didn't lose so much as we just ran out of time. To a man, they fought with everything they had, and we couldn't ask for a more committed team. This year will also see the greatest partnership since O'Driscoll and O'Gara step down after a similarly influential tenure as sheriff and deputy of this institution. Mr. McGinty's contribution to Blackrock College is hard to fit into a single speech. I still remember our first day in second year when he left us with the phrase, "If it is to be, it is up to me." Mr. McGinty embodies these words in his devotion to Blackrock College, working tirelessly throughout his time here to make Blackrock a centre of excellence not only in academics and extracurriculars, but in shaping young men for the future. No one will ever say that Blackrock and its students had a greater advocate or a more committed leader. He is an extraordinary act for anyone to follow. One man, though, did follow him. Mr. Hurley has been Blackrock's version of Paolo Maldini or Rob Kearney, keeping the backfield in order with such efficiency that it can be easy to take his Trojan work for granted. In the day-to-day lives of students, though, no absence will be more keenly felt. Although I did overhear Mr. McGinty in his office practicing Jordan Belford's speech of, "They're going to need to send in the National Guard, damn it, because I'm not going nowhere." Who knows what the future holds for Blackrock College? What we do know is that our time here has taught the class of 2023 to be there, be caring, be truthful, be grateful, be respectful. Some of us know where we're going next. Matthew Heckman to the Lakers, David McHugh to Liverpool, and Jonathan Hoffman to 10 Downing Street. But wherever we go, these values and all our time in Blackrock will stand to us not only as we make our final preparations for the exams, but as we enter the world beyond. Coming from a long tradition of nerdy valedictorians that studied Latin, it would be remiss of me not to slide some classical wisdom into this address. Yes, for those of you wondering, this is how I get women. On the last day of term, my teacher, the great Dr. Maguire, left our class with the words of the Trojan hero Aeneas that he used to encourage his weary, shipwrecked men. Forsan et haec olim menemise eubavit. Or, for those of you that only studied Virgil's other works, perhaps one day it will be sweet to remember even these things. Our time in school hasn't always been easy, especially not the last 9 months. We've all had our shipwrecks and storms to battle, individually and collectively, but not least a global pandemic. But what saw us through and will continue to see us through is our unity. Our year group is united not only by the college values we embody, but by the fact that we support each other. So while the past 6 years have at times been tough, and the next 6 weeks won't be easy, I hope the fact that we experienced it all together, the good and the bad, will make our time here sweet to remember in the years to come. I'm sure that some of us may want to just move on, to get the leaving over and done with, and trade the 55 acres of rolling parkland for the beaches of Eos. We all look forward to the next chapter. Yet we must acknowledge that those as yet unwritten chapters will not stand alone, but will rely on the chapters we have all shared here together. The friendships we made, the lessons we learned, and the challenges we overcame as we grew from boys to men walking the hallowed halls of Blackrock College. As President Kennedy was wont to quote from the legend of King Arthur, "Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot." There have been more than a few shining moments for the class of 2023. And to paraphrase Alesso, despite whatever challenges faced us, these were the years, and they will not be easily forgotten. Thank you.